Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today we're going to take a look at prices for loose graded vintage Star Wars figures. Lots of cool UKG and AFA graded items. I don't think I have any CAS items, but a really nice assortment here, and nothing crazy in this batch, but just some solid figures to give you a good idea of prices in case you are looking for anything in particular. Lots of common stuff, but in high grade. So as always, thanks to my Patreon supporters. They allow this channel to be what it is today. Patreon.com/actionfiguregrader is where you can go to sign up to get early access to all of my videos, as well as buy it now alerts on eBay. Although I imagine a lot of you are not buying on eBay right now, saving up for the incredible items that are at auction on Hakes that end at the end of July. I know I am. I'm not buying anything. I'm saving up some money, hoping to win an item or two. So, all right, let's take a look. This is one I did send to my Patreon supporters in a buy it now alert because it had a make an offer option. And this is a good testament to there is no harm in making a lowball offer to see what a seller will accept, because I thought the price on this one was great. This was an AFA 70 double telescoping saber Luke Farmboy archival case. And so it had the brand new case style, but, it was not high grade. And, it was listed at $800, which I didn't think was that great or that bad of a price at all, really. But, I sent it to my Patreon supporters. I said, hey, there's a make an offer option in case you want to bid on this. I've seen some loose examples in pretty similar condition, quite honestly, go for this price. And in this case, it included the certificate of authenticity from CIB, which they usually do for very expensive figures like double telescoping sabers or vinyl cape Jawas, first shot prototypes. And you'll notice in the notes, it says, this example is missing approximately 3 millimeters of the inner filament, and that's why it got the 70. The figure itself was in pretty good shape. I mean, that's a really nice looking example, but because the inner filament was not fully complete, they measure it, it automatically defaults to at best a 70 grade. That's the best you can get when there's a portion of the inner filament missing. But so what? This is a really nice example, much more budget friendly than an AFA 85, for example, which can set you back, I'd say, very comfortably $2,000 to $2,500. So an AFA 70 make an offer at $800. The best offer accepted on this was $550. So the seller came off quite a bit, and I thought that was a great deal, a steal of a deal, worth every penny of $550. That's about as budget friendly as you'll find for a graded double telescoping saber Luke Farmboy. Next up, I've got some UKG graded items. I got two different Taiwans that sold. This Taiwan UKG 85% Boba Fett sold in an auction for 165 pounds, which is $211. And then this one also was in an auction, Taiwan Boba Fett. It's labeled V5 Blaster on the label here, and you can see how dark that blaster is. Whereas this one, I can't tell based on the photos. I assume it's a V5 blaster. It does. It says on this auction, it does say V5 M6 blaster. So I don't know why some of the UKG graded Taiwan Boba Fetts have the V5 blaster on the label and some of them don't. I guess you have to request it, maybe. I don't know. But assuming they're both the same, which they look like they are, that one sold for $211. And again, the figure score was 90, paint 85. This one was figure scored 90, paint 85 as well. So exact same item, exact same grades and subgrades. That one sold for $223. That one sold for $211. So, very tight price range there if you are looking for a UKG 85% Taiwan Boba Fett with the correct V5 blaster. Treasures from the Attic also had this one. This is one I had in my What to Buy video. I don't know if one of y'all bought it or not, but this was the Spanish POC Black Boots Hoth Rebel Commander. And you can see there, it's got the very, very dark black, or dark brown, really, but they call it the Black Boots. And it's one of the more desirable Spanish POC variants, early Spanish POC figure. UKG 85%. That one sold for 350 pounds, which is $450 US. That's the price I'd pay. And I was tempted, to be honest with you, because I've got one where the black boot paint had kind of spread into that waffle pattern on the back of the leg. And so it is an 85, but it doesn't look like an 85 relative to this one. This one's very clean with the paint apps, about as clean as you'll find for the Spanish Pac Hoth Rebel Commander. So I thought that was worth every penny of $450. Some more common figures. This is a made in China, which is still maybe a little harder to find than the Hong Kong for the Hoth Stormtrooper, but this was the China COO. That one sold for 92 pounds, which is $118. They also had a Hong Kong Biker Scout graded UKG 85%. That sold for $122. And then they had a Hong Kong Stormtrooper graded UKG 85%, which, would it get an 85 with AFA? I don't know. I mean, I tend to think not. It looks like it maybe. It's hard to tell with these photos because it could be shadows, but it looks like the arms and the legs on this one don't quite match the torso for this one. And, that one feels to me like an 80 or an 80 plus. But UKG grades it maybe a little looser than AFA. And that one sold for $201 US. Could it get an 85 with AFA? Maybe. It's just hard to know. It's hard to know for sure. But it seems like AFA grades, especially the Hong Kong COO, a lot tighter than UKG does. And, we talked about it with the China COO for the Stormtrooper, how there's been AFA 85 examples where the arms and legs don't match the torso, very similar to this, where it's still got the 85 with AFA. But I feel like with Hong Kong's especially, AFA is really tight on those. I know CAS is pretty tight on them too, but not as tight as AFA. So anyway, it doesn't particularly matter. I mean, it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. We're nitpicking over plastic dolls, whether it's an 80 or an 85. Here is a green lightsaber Luke's Jedi Knight. That's a Hong Kong. This one did have a nose rub, as you can see there. Me personally, I think if any Luke Jedi Knight has nose rub, it does not deserve an 85, in my opinion. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not dogging anybody or dogging any of the grading companies, but I just think that if you got a nose rub or you got rub that's noticeable on the hand, this one does not. But really, that nose rub alone should automatically default it to an 80. That's just my personal opinion. I think aesthetically, it's an art, right? It's not a science. We've talked about that when it comes to grading. And it's aesthetics. It's how it presents. Same thing for mint on cards. A crease on the front of the card should ding it more than a crease on the back of the card if it doesn't show on both sides. Things like that. So in my opinion, nose rub 80% at best, or 80 plus at best. But anyway, that one did sell for 124 pounds, which is $160 US. CIB did have some loose graded 12-inch figures. You don't see those very often, loose graded. Here is the Han Solo AFA 75. That sold for $356. The Jawa was an AFA 80. That sold for $305. And then the Vader, which I thought was particularly nice, that one sold for $340. That was an AFA 80 as well. So I thought all of those were really nice presenting. They're just so big, you gotta have the space for those. I would love to have the Vader, but it's just so hard to find a spot in my collection room at this point for something that large. Here is that Gold Star Tech seller on eBay again. I'm thinking about bidding here soon on an item. By the time this video airs, I will have already bid, so we'll see how it goes. But I know a number of you have bid on this seller's auctions. He's got really nice loose graded examples, baggies, all kinds of good stuff. I haven't bought from this seller yet, so I don't know how good he packs or whether it's legit, but we've talked about it in past videos. But here's an AFA 85 Hong Kong Princess Leia old case style that sold for $305. That seems about right. Here is the large head Han Solo First 12 AFA 85 old case style Hong Kong COO. That one sold for $167.50. Again, probably about right given the old case style. Red logo AT-AT driver AFA 85. That sold for $157. Again, all of those are older case styles, so you would expect those to maybe go for a little bit less than a newer case style. They also had this one. I know a Patreon supporter picked this one up. This was what I call the overstock Palatoy baggie that has a made in China stamp. And it's got the brown-haired Luke Bespin inside. This was AFA 80 plus. That one sold for $167.50, which I thought was a pretty good deal there. Maybe a little overgraded because the baggie conditions are a little rough, but whatever. I mean, usually that baggie in this condition can go for $200 to $250 ungraded. So to get one already graded maybe slightly overgraded. It's probably more like an 80 in my opinion, but it's a really nice baggie. Congrats who got it. I know who did. But that's one baggie I wouldn't mind having at one point. But 167.50 on that one. This was only a 75 grade, but this is a Leia Bouche baggie. I just showed you guys in an unboxing video fairly recently some of the baggies in my collection. And I mentioned in that video the ROTJA baggie is one that is a little bit less common maybe than the ROTJH baggie that I have, which is also a Taiwan baggie. But this one is this one made in Hong Kong? This is made in Taiwan as well. So there's an ROTJA, ROTJH that are both made in Taiwan. But this is the harder to find one. This one's a little bit harder to find. You don't see it very often. It sold for $138.50. Pretty good deal there. I mean, ungraded, you can see those go for $200 or more. I'd pay in a really good condition, I'd pay up to $200 for one ungraded. So I thought $138.50, even though it's a 75, that's a pretty good deal for one of the harder to find baggies. It's not as hard to find as like the Meccano sales sample baggie, but it's definitely harder to find than the ROTJH baggie that I have. So pretty good deal there, I thought. Next up, this was another one that was picked up by a Patreon supporter. This is a loose graded UKG 85 Jabba the Hutt playset. Really nice display on this one. I hope it makes it to him in one piece, so please let me know if you did get this in good condition, because that's, you know, it's a little dicey with this big of an item and all the little moving pieces and acrylic kind of sliding pieces they got on this one. But I like the way that UKG displays this. CAS also does have a really nice display for the Jabba the Hutt playset. And that one sold for $356, which I thought was a really good deal. Really, really fair deal there. Here's a Yak Face UKG 80% old case style. That one sold for $610. And again, I've seen some, and I'm going to cover one here soon in a loose complete video. It was loose complete, not nearly as good a condition as this, and it sold in an auction for $538, loose complete, versus one that's already graded UKG 80%, and I would argue it's in better shape than the one that sold. That one sold for $538. This one sold for $610. I'm paying the $610 for the UKG 80%. Good deal there. Here was a Kia Mall loose graded AF 85. You don't see the Ewoks or the droids figures that loose graded that often. So I thought that was a pretty good deal. 85 grade, brand new case style for $187.50. And then here was the low grade Ewoks cartoon version graded 85 plus. Very, very high grade, new case style. And we've talked about this particular figure at length and how even on beater cards, they can go for less than this sometimes. This one sold for $325 loose graded. And we've talked about it in market updates where, you know, kind of tatty condition examples can sell for this price or less. So would I pay for an 85 plus loose graded a cartoon version of low grade at $325? Yeah, I'd pay that. I think that's a good deal. And I bet if you looked it up, I didn't look it up, but if you looked it up on the AFA population report, the population of the loose graded Ewoks and droids figures, especially some of the more esoteric ones, there's just not many of them for whatever reason. So I thought that was a fair deal. It wasn't a steal by any means, but it was definitely, I think, a fair deal for what it is. Great looking figure there. All right, that's all I really had for this loose graded vintage Kenner and Palatoy market update. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.